Movies and film have been an essential part of our entertainment for over a century. Film as a medium has the power to bring our most beloved stories to life, and has the power to inspire us, influence our culture and belief systems, and even move us to tears. Today, the film industry is the product of over a century of technological advancements and creative endeavors, and has been a major contributor to the global economy. But not only is the medium of film and storytelling constantly changing and evolving, so is the business of film production and distribution. And in recent years, the traditional film industry has been struggling. Video streaming services such as Netflix, Amazon Prime, Hulu, and Disney Plus has taken over the entertainment industry by storm by offering on-demand content at a lower price and providing viewers with original content that rival that of Hollywood productions. Just like how video killed the radio star, in this video we will discuss how video streaming killed the movie theater, how streaming giants are now turning into the new age of cable, and how this impacts new movies and video content, and what we as consumers can do about it. Hey everyone, welcome to Alexandria, where we discuss and observe finance, economics, and business topics that are relevant in our everyday life. The rapid development of the film industry can be illustrated by the fact that this movie was made just 100 years ago, when radio was still in its infancy and film technology was nothing short of breakthrough. In the early days of film, the prospect of watching a movie in the movie theater was a pretty big deal. But then, with the mass adoption of television sets in the 50s, VHS in the 80s, and DVDs in the 90s, made movies more accessible and became more viable and cheaper alternatives to the movie theater. But then came the biggest breakthrough of all, the internet, which paved the way for a late 90s startup called Netflix to create the newest and most disruptive innovation for modern entertainment that we've ever seen. Netflix's journey is the epitome of disruptive innovation. It began as a mail-in DVD service, appealing to a niche market ignored by the then giant Blockbuster. Gradually, Netflix evolved, becoming the market leader in streaming. This progression ultimately put Blockbuster out of business and left movie theaters fighting for their very survival. Anyone who's old enough to know what this is can give you eyewitness accounts on just how disruptive Netflix and streaming really are. Since it became widely adopted in the 2000s, streaming services such as Netflix, Amazon Prime, Hulu, and Disney Plus have simply made movies and TV shows cheaper, easier, and more convenient to consume. And with more and more people choosing to view entertainment online, the number of people going to theaters and consequently box office sales have declined sharply and continues to decline by the day. In 2018, 28% of consumers preferred to watch a movie for the first time in a movie theater, compared to only 15% who favored streaming. However, COVID-19 devastated theaters due to its closures. By June of 2020, the percentage of adults who strongly preferred seeing a movie in a theater fell to 14%, with 36% choosing to stream movies instead. Price cannot be ignored as one of the main drivers of change. As of early 2024, it costs an average of $10 for a movie ticket per person, while a basic monthly Netflix subscription is available for $6.99. Not to mention, that gives you access to their entire library of content, as opposed to just one movie. And while theater closures during the pandemic wasn't the cause of the declining theater attendance, it certainly accelerated developments that have been in motion for years before the pandemic even started. The struggle is also real for television networks, who are also losing audience numbers as more consumers would choose to stream their favorite TV shows wherever they want, whenever they want, and on demand. Once a major disruptor, the video streaming industry has established itself as a gigantic economic force, valued at $544 billion, with industry revenues expected to top $44 billion in 2024, and $55 billion by 2027, which is a compounded annual growth rate of 7.5%. This figure is more than just a testament to the industry's current success, it's a glimpse into a rapidly expanding future. Projections indicate that by 2030, the industry is expected to skyrocket to an impressive $1.9 trillion. This projected growth reflects not only the increasing global appetite for digital streaming content, but also the technological advancements and innovations that continue to redefine the landscape of entertainment and media consumption. Netflix further transformed the entertainment landscape when it began releasing original content in 2013. Today, Netflix, along with other top streaming services, have have become movie-making powerhouses. Netflix alone has now produced 7,000 original titles, including television series, documentaries, and movies, and its share of Netflix originals and exclusives have been steadily growing as part of its content library. As of early 2024, Netflix productions, originals, and exclusives already make up 50% of the Netflix content library, and according to the streamer, that number will likely be 70% as of December of 2024. While the streamer may continue to license content, that would make up a shrinking share of their content library going forward. For example, Netflix originals like Stranger Things and Squid Games have become household names and have catapulted Netflix to have over 260 million subscribers globally. Netflix now spends upwards of $17 billion annually developing top-tier films and series. That includes massive investments just for the initial script purchases. And unlike traditional studios tied to theatrical releases, Netflix develops a vast range of scripted content across every genre imaginable. That wide range means that Netflix can buy everything from micro-budget indie scripts to massive blockbuster tentpoles. So unlike traditional Hollywood studios, streaming services facilitate the production and distribution of more diverse and niche content. And because they are not limited by the traditional Hollywood system, streaming services can take more chances on relatively unknown filmmakers and projects, which might have a more challenging time securing financing or distribution towards conventional channels. This ultimately draws and retains a wide range of audiences on its subscription platform. Needless to say, more subscribers means more revenue, and more revenue means more funding to make the content production machine more powerful than ever. Importantly, what this means is that Netflix has achieved economies of scale in the content production pipeline. As a major streamer, it is cheaper and way less risky to produce new content compared to traditional studios or TV networks. And here's why. The average Netflix original film budget can range anywhere from $65 to $200 million to produce. For a series, costs can range from $1 million to $13 million per episode. While Hollywood theatrical releases generally exhibit a similar budget range, streaming productions have a major cost advantage, and it comes down to marketing spend. For example, Disney Marvel Studios spent north of $356 million to produce the hit superhero film Avengers Endgame, but then invested over $200 million more for marketing costs. In this case, it worked out since they made $2.8 billion in the box office. But in many other cases, marketing budgets can be 6 or even 7 times higher than production costs. Lower cost films like Paranormal Activity, Annabelle Creation, and A Quiet Place all had marketing budgets that were way higher than their production budgets. And Jordan Peele's 2017 film Get Out only cost $4.5 million to produce, but it had a $77 million global budget for prints and advertising. While this may sound ridiculous, marketing dollars spent on promoting a movie before a theatrical release is not a luxury, but rather a necessity in Hollywood. Because from a business perspective, having a box office flop is simply not an option. Spending money promoting a film is necessary to drive up box office sales for the limited time that they will be in theaters. Contrast that to direct-to-stream films on Netflix. In 2023, Netflix spent over $2.65 billion on promoting new films, but it has never invested as much per title as its peers in Hollywood. It saves money by not spending so much on marketing upfront, given that it releases hundreds of titles a year. The company has relied on its algorithm to serve up the right show for the right viewer, and then spends money to amplify a project that's already popular. This consequently gives Netflix tremendous purchasing power compared to Hollywood. For example, most major studios pay between $500,000 to $1 million for scripts with strong commercial prospects. Netflix, in many cases, can pay up to $3 million for a script, meaning that the streaming giant can afford to outbid Hollywood for the best potential screenplays with global appeal. Netflix reshaped Hollywood by offering talented writers, producers, and actors the opportunities that major studios couldn't. Creators can earn life-changing wealth from passion projects on Netflix. So whether you're an up-and-coming indie filmmaker or Martin Scorsese, the incentives are there for writers to see their beloved projects come to life with the financial backing from the massive Netflix machine. For all these reasons, it's no surprise realize that the business of streaming is winning against Hollywood studios and theaters. Streaming platforms earn subscription and advertising revenue, which means that they have a consistent and reliable source of income. In turn, this leads to economies of scale for content production. As streaming services grow in popularity, their impact on the film industry continues to evolve, requiring traditional distribution channels to adapt and find ways to coexist. And in November of 2022, Netflix was indeed forced to evolve, but not in a way anyone expected. While the pandemic devastated theaters, Netflix won out because the company saw a sharp increase in new subscribers when everyone was locked down. Families were in desperate need for cheap and accessible entertainment. For many, Netflix was the answer. But in the second quarter of 2022, Netflix saw a net contraction of 970,000 accounts, its largest subscriber loss in its 25-year history. The stock price lost 70% of its value that year. On the one hand, it's because travel rebounded. Employees returned to the office, so users didn't see the need to continue their Netflix subscriptions. On the other hand, competing streaming platforms like Disney Plus or Amazon Prime were also offering their own exclusive content. In other words, Netflix was losing market share. This was a humbling pill to swallow for one of the biggest and most disruptive companies that had a monopoly over streaming for over a decade. Out of desperation, Netflix started cracking down on password sharing, but more importantly, they introduced advertising in November of 2022 for their basic subscription tier, something that streaming platforms have strategically avoided for years because it takes away from the viewing experience. This meant two things for Netflix. One, advertising dollars from some massive retailers like LVMH and L'Oreal. And two, for those who didn't want their favorite programs interrupted by ads, they have to pay for a more expensive subscription tier. So essentially, the company makes more money, but the audience pays the price. According to a survey of 1,000 Americans done by Forbes, 50% of streaming users pay for a streaming service without ads, highlighting a clear preference for uninterrupted viewing experiences. Which means that now, with the introduction of advertising, streaming giants are making more revenue per subscriber than they had in the last 2 decades. Despite that, the introduction of advertising turned out to be a good bet for the company, as its member base grew by 12.8% year over year. And then there's the streaming wars. Disney, for example, has some of the most loved stories and most valuable intellectual property. In 2019, with the launch of its own streaming platform, Disney Plus, Disney began putting their previously licensed content exclusively on its own platform. This includes major blockbusters like Star Wars, Marvel, and the Disney classics. And then there's Amazon, known by many to be the go-to e-commerce store with insanely quick shipping times, signaled to the world how serious they actually were about the streaming business when they spent $1 billion to acquire the rights of Lord of the Rings in 2017. Not to mention Amazon, like Disney and Netflix, also has its own content-making machine. Today, there are over 200 streaming services available, all offering their unique library of content. What this means for consumers is that now people have to pay for multiple subscriptions in order to have access to the full range of movies and TV shows. And with the recently added layer of advertising, audiences are now pondering how this is different from the days of cable. As of March 2024, these prices represent the financial commitment required by consumers to access the unique libraries and features each service offers. The variations in pricing underscores the competitive nature of the streaming industry and the different value propositions presented to subscribers. According to Forbes, the average consumer is subscribed to an average of 3 streaming services, equating to $46 a month. This figure reflects not just the value placed on entertainment, but also the willingness for consumers to invest in a diverse range of content options. Given recent developments in streaming, it's no surprise that consumers feel frustrated by having so many streaming options and by having to pick and choose their subscriptions. And with the economy tanking, interest rate hikes, and 40-year high inflation, 45% of those surveyed have canceled a streaming subscription within the last year, citing high costs as the primary reason. This data aligns closely closely with another finding that 44% of people reported that their streaming subscription costs have increased over the last 12 months. Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Zaslav understands that streaming options need to be simplified, so he's proposing a solution that sounds reminiscent of good old cable TV. According to The Hollywood Reporter, Zaslav has been discussing new streaming bundles with other companies. The goal of bundling multiple streaming services together is to improve the experience of consumers and to make it as easy as possible to watch TV shows and movies. If streaming services can bundle together, then it would be similar to cable TV, allowing consumers to have seemingly endless watch options available to them. These developments are already at play, like when Netflix spent $5 billion to partner with WWE for viewing rights as of January of 2024. So all existing and new subscribers to Netflix will have access to live wrestling, whether or not you actually want it. And going forward, expect to see more mergers and acquisitions between streaming platforms. Another example is how Verizon is now offering the Disney Bundle, where customers can have access to Disney+, Hulu, and ESPN by adding $10 a month to their plan, rather than paying nearly $20 if one were to buy these streaming services separately. While this might sound like a good deal, eventually what happens is that a lot of people end up paying for content that they're not going to watch. Similar to their cable predecessors, streaming companies have lured people in with the promise of a better and cheaper viewing experience. Now that they have a robust subscriber base, they're in the process of raising rates while also introducing more commercials and bundling programming to make customers pay more and more. For better or for worse, streaming has significantly impacted the film industry in terms of how films are produced and distributed and how audiences consume them. This, consequently, changes not only the nature of the content we consume, but also our lifestyle. A quick browse through the internet will yield many results of audiences taking notice about the slump in satisfactory movies and storytelling in recent years. Like this popular string of videos from The Critical Drinker, talking about the many reasons why modern movies suck. Oscar-winning director Quentin Tarantino has even remarked that we are in one of the worst movie experiencing eras of all time. What makes a good versus a bad movie is a separate debate and beyond the scope of this video. However, by understanding deeper into the economics of streaming, there is a very compelling business reason as to why this is happening. As mentioned earlier, Netflix has achieved economies of scale in its content production machine. Netflix's content pipeline is similar to that of venture capitalists on Shark Tank. But instead of aspiring entrepreneurs pitching their product or service, Netflix offers potential financing for screenwriters and producers who can pitch a compelling storyline with global appeal. Every potential movie or TV show is treated like a startup, and the Netflix library of content acts like a portfolio of assets, like assets in an investment fund, with each asset being a movie, TV show, or documentary. In venture capital funding, there is a theory called the power law. This law suggests that most startups in a given venture portfolio will likely fail, but that's okay, because the moment the venture capitalist makes the right bet, it will make up for all the losses incurred in all the other assets in the portfolio that has failed. A good example of this is when Peter Thiel's 2004 investment in Facebook was the right bet, and that one investment made up for all the losses incurred in all his other investments. Netflix operates in a similar philosophy when it comes to creating their content. The executives at the streaming giant understand that most creative bets will probably flop, and they are okay with that, because the moment when they inevitably make the right bet, such as with Stranger Things and Squid Game, that revenue will carry their platform, attract and retain subscribers, and make up for any losses made on the wrong bets. From Netflix's standpoint, the goal is not necessarily to make cinematic masterpieces. The goal is to keep advertisers happy by keeping people subscribed on the platform. So by treating their content library as an investment portfolio, making a bad movie here and there doesn't actually make a material difference to their bottom line. Therefore, it's no surprise that many TV shows on Netflix get canceled after just one season if the viewership numbers are not high enough for company expectations. Back in the golden age of of Hollywood, producers were under intense pressure to make great films with great writing, talent, and production. Because if not, box office sales would be underwhelming, and producers will ultimately lose their investment. Time is also an important distinguishing factor between Hollywood and modern streaming. Traditionally, a studio would spend years working on a film and release it to theaters hoping for positive reviews. Netflix, though, can make a movie in a matter of months. This means that the streaming service is able to make quick, cheap, and unoriginal films and roll them out at startling fast pace. The film industry has recently faced a lot of criticism for its lack of innovation. Many movies follow the same formula, resulting in predictable plot twists and storylines, and many viewers are becoming bored with this lack of creativity. It is rare today to see a movie with new intriguing storylines and unique camera techniques. There is an ongoing debate as to whether the rise of streaming is helpful or harmful to society. In many ways, it's both. On the one hand, it made viewing movies cheaper, easier, and more accessible, but that comes with negative side effects. Americans spend an average of 3 hours a day streaming digital media. In today's digital age, streaming media has woven itself into the fabric of everyday life in America. This engagement translates to over 21 hours a week, equivalent to the commitment of a part-time job. This significant investment of time underscores the central role that streaming services play in entertainment for the average American. Streaming services know, and they take full advantage of it. Stories that used to be told in 2-hour movie formats have transformed into binge-worthy serialized content. While this can mean that storytelling is more fleshed out and robust, practices like binge-watching have become common. While consuming some entertainment is important, imagine if you can use the 20 hours binging TV shows to instead learn a new skill, get healthy, or pursue a hobby. But streaming executives don't necessarily want you to have such ideas, because if once in a while you find yourself binge watching a whole lot of content, it is because that is by design. They want to keep you on the platform for as long as possible, because the longer you're on the platform, it will reinforce Netflix's machine to put out the same old movies. As a consumer, the best you can do is to set limits on the time you spend on streaming platforms, and be extremely selective in only paying for the content that you truly want to watch. With streaming essentially turning into cable TV, it ends up being that consumers will pay for content that they don't want to watch. Even a discounted, bundled subscription to multiple streaming platforms would only be a bargain if you binge watch enough to truly justify the cost. Remember, while streaming giants by design want you to be addicted to binging content, the decision is yours at the end of the day. It is more important than ever for you to be intentional with your time and money. And if there's one thing that we hope you take away from this video, it is this: choose to be intentional, whatever that means for you. If you like this breakdown of technology and business trends, check out a similar video right here. At Alexandria, we do video essays on where we observe finance in our everyday life, and we will see you in the next one.